I'm not gonna defend adding Jeffrey Goldberg to this chat. I'm not defending that.
I'm asking Anna.
But you did, Benny. The first thing you did was engage in whataboutism.
It's a war plan.
That's the first thing you did in an effort to provide cover for this obvious, massive, colossal mistake and error that was made by members.
All right, folks, buckle up. What just went down on Piers Morgan Uncensored might be one of the most satisfying political smackdowns we've seen in a while. Front and center, Anna Kasparian, firing on all cylinders, calling out MAGA hypocrisy, without a shred of hesitation. Across from her sat Benny Johnson, flailing, fumbling, and flat-out embarrassing himself in a desperate attempt to defend the indefensible. And listen, I don't toss around the word humiliation lightly, but when even Piers Morgan, a guy who's practically built a side hustle out of defending Trump, starts ripping into his own side over a national security blunder, you know the whole house of cards is starting to shake. Today we're breaking down this savage exchange from top to bottom. Trump's national security advisor leaking sensitive intel on Signal, the absurd defenses MAGA loyalists scrambled to cook up, and how Anna Kasparian blew the lid off their double standards in real time. If you thought MAGA media was shameless before, just wait until you see this meltdown. Let's get into it.
I want to stare at you down the barrel of this camera, and I want you to try. I want you to try and imagine for a moment you're a Democrat. Okay? Can you do that?
All right. That's right. Okay, I can feel the self-loathing. All right.
You're a Democrat. And you heard about this story. You're outraged, right?
Sure.
Why are you outraged?
Well, because obviously it's so malevolent, evil, and dangerous for American politicians who have classified information to store them, and all of that classified information illegally on private servers inside of a water closet, being run totally offline by a this is all a big hoax.
Benny.
The hoax.
Benny, I admire the rigorous whataboutery. I give you a little bit round of applause for the quality of the whataboutery. But how can you say...
I live for your applause.
I would say, how can you say with a straight face, but you are laughing quite maniacally, so I won't bother. But how can you say with a maniacally laughing face that it was not classified information? Because I can't, honestly, I've been wrestling with this since this story broke. I come from a lot of military in my family. How could specifics about an imminent attack 2 hours before it's about to happen on foreign soil involving American armed forces, detailing times, detailing the type of aircraft, the type of weaponry, who the targets were. The group chat was named after the targets, right? How could that not constitute classified information? If that isn't classified information, given the time sensitivity of it and the information in those chats, what is?
Oh, hold up, wait a second, Piers. You're not in charge of what's classified and what's not. There's an entire system for that. And
you said it wasn't classified information.
That system was literally on a live panel. Curiously, that system was
on a recent live episode. In a rare but refreshing twist, Piers Morgan, a commentator not exactly famous for going after the right, turned his sharp tongue on a MAGA loyalist and didn't hold back. His target, Benny Johnson, a right-wing media figure who quickly found himself flailing under Morgan's relentless questioning about a jaw-dropping national security lapse in the Trump administration. The scandal. Trump's own national security advisor allegedly added journalist Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal group chat discussing a classified U.S. military operation. That's not just reckless, that's a full-blown crisis-level failure. Watching Morgan, usually soft on Trump, take this breach seriously and hold his guests' feet to the fire was a rare and satisfying moment of journalistic accountability in MAGA world. Morgan's main point was simple but devastating. If Biden's team had pulled a stunt, even half this careless MAGA Republicans would be demanding resignations, investigations, and probably a televised perp walk. And they'd be right. This wasn't a harmless slip-up. It was a conversation about a pending military strike happening on Signal, an app that was never designed for top-tier classified communication. Whether or not the intel technically meets the legal definition of classified barely matters. The sheer recklessness is disqualifying. Morgan pressed the issue again and again, asking Johnson point-blank if the official should be fired. Predictably, Johnson dodged because in MAGA politics, accountability is apparently a virtue that only applies to Democrats.
But my response to that would be, and I'll bring in the other panel members very shortly, my response to that would be, if it was the other way round, and this was under the Biden administration, you wouldn't just be saying it was unwise or a mistake.
Oh, you mean?
You would say.
Oh,
hang on.
Yeah.
I haven't asked you a question. You would say, hang on a second. The National Security Advisor for the United States of America added a journalist that hates Trump and the administration to a highly classified, probably illegal because they're not supposed to do that on Signal, conversation about an imminent attack on foreign soil involving American military. You would demand
keep saying
that.
it's illegal.
Hang on. Here's the
That's
question.
not up to you,
Here's
pal.
the question.
It's not up to you.
Here's
There's
my
a
question.
classification
Here's my
process.
question for you.
Benny Johnson's appearance was a masterclass in public self-immolation. Confronted with straightforward, legitimate questions, he offered no facts. No coherent defense, just a carnival of whataboutism and conspiracy-drenched deflection. Out came the greatest hits. Hillary Clinton's emails. Tulsi Gabbard's unevidenced claims. Anything to change the subject from the actual national security failure on the table. Desperate to rewrite the narrative, Johnson floated everything, from shadowy deep state sabotage to some vague, accidental technical glitch. And when those excuses crumbled, he pivoted to maniacal laughter, the universal tell that you've run out of arguments but want to pretend the whole thing's a joke. It wasn't just a weak performance. It reeked of desperation, the kind you can smell through the
Look, I know Pete, I like Pete.
Even the Atlantic has changed their words
No, but
and
hang on,
changed their
look,
story
look,
here.
let's
The
be
Atlantic
clear.
says, oh, now it's an attack. It's an attack plan. It's not a war plan.
Well, what
And
would
it's
you
not
call
exactly-
this?
they
What would you
scrubbed-
ca- okay,
they
but
scrubbed
what would you call this?
classification.
But look,
All of this hinges
hang
on
on,
what's
hang on, no,
classified
Benny,
and what's not.
I'm gonna bring.
I'm not gonna defend adding
No,
Jeffrey
Anna,
Goldberg to this chat. I'm not defending that. I'm not here to
I'm
defend
asking
that.
Anna.
But
I
you
think
did,
that's-
Benny.
I
The
think
first thing you
that
did
that
was engage
is-
in whataboutism.
It's a war
That's
plan.
the first thing you did in an effort to provide cover for this obvious, massive, colossal mistake and error that was made by members of the Trump cabinet. Let's just keep it 100. Look, Brian is correct in calling out the hackery that is going on in the media right now. Depending on which party, the member of the media is supportive of, they're going to provide cover for bad behavior, but immediately change tune when it's a member of their own party or preferred party engaging in the same activity. Fact of the matter is, what Hillary Clinton did with her email server was wrong. We condemned it at TYT. I continue to condemn it today. The massive error that was made by Trump administration officials, not just by the inclusion of Jeffrey Goldberg in that group text, but the fact that they were using Signal to communicate, which is not a secure way of communicating about classified information. Whatever plans they have, whatever strikes they intend to do in other countries, they should not be using the Signal app to be doing that. It is okay to call a spade, even if it's your own preferred party engaging in the bad behavior. But that's the problem, Pierce. We have nothing but hacks in the media in America now, where you're so...
Joining Morgan on the panel was Anna Kasparian, who delivered a sharp, surgical takedown of the partisan hypocrisy on display. She reminded viewers that the Young Turks had no problem condemning Hillary Clinton over her email server scandal, and still don't. That's called consistency. What MAGA media figures like Benny Johnson lack is the courage to apply those same standards to their own side. Kasparian's point was simple. If you can't call out your own tribe when they're wrong, you don't deserve the platform you've been given. The idea that it's disloyal. To hold your own accountable is exactly what's hollowed out conservative media, where truth and integrity get tossed aside the second they threaten your guy. Piers Morgan, a man who's made a career out of hammering liberals and progressives with bombastic flair, flipped the script this time and gave the MAGA crowd a taste of their own medicine, and frankly, it was long overdue. Watching him grill Johnson with the same ferocity he usually reserves for the left was compelling television and even better commentary. Maybe it's a sign that some corners of conservative media are finally done making excuses for Trump's inner circle. Maybe it was just a fleeting moment of clarity. Either way, it was a breath of fresh air. And given the other topics discussed in that episode, from Elon Musk to crypto chaos, there's clearly more meat on the bone for future breakdowns. Here's the bottom line. When Yvonne Piers Morgan stops making excuses, you know the MAGA defense is collapsing under its own weight. Benny Johnson couldn't answer a straight question, couldn't defend the facts, and couldn't muster the backbone to admit when Trump's people screwed up. Anna Kasparian, on the other hand, brought the heat, calling out the hypocrisy, cutting through the spin, and showing exactly what it looks like to hold your ground with integrity. This isn't about left versus right anymore, it's about reality versus delusion. If Republicans want to be taken seriously on national security, they need to start cleaning their own house instead of hiding behind whataboutism. Until then, we'll keep calling it